or after the Iraqi war, Jordan or Amman, let's say, had a lot of Iraqi refugees, Palestinian refugees from Lebanon at the Lebanese-Israel last war, and also from Syria nowadays. So you can see that everything changed. People think it's now another way than that in this time or this period that this movie is representing. My third point is there is in Jordan there is something called two entities, as I call it maybe. There is Amman, the capital of Jordan, where you go. It's like a Western city. You see everything. There's clubs, bars, everything you want. You can find in Amman. Okay. You go to other cities like Zarqa. Zarqa has own. I lived in Zarqa for 10 years, so I know the city also. So Zarqa has its own entity because it's a very, very weird, like different mixture of people who are living in Zarqa. There is people who work for military in Zarqa. There is people who are living like in small parts of the city, like the one we saw. It used to be a small camp at the time of Palestinian refugees, and it built itself to be a city. If you see, like you open your door and you are at the door of your neighbor. But if you go outside Amman, sorry, I'm gonna finish my word now. But if you go outside Amman to cities in the south, Jordanian cities, like let's say full of Jordanian citizens, not refugees. So not Palestinians, let's say, or from Palestinian rules, can go to cities in the south, and you can see that there are Jordanians from living in Jordan since like hundreds of years, but still they don't have the basic infrastructure. They don't have electricity, water, and anything. So it's not a case just of Zarqa or certain cities. It depends where you are in Jordan. Depends which kind of people you talk to. Most of the Jordanians who are in this group are from Jordan, are from Amman. So the way we talk, we are open. We know other languages, especially auch Deutsch. But if you go to other cities in Jordan, you can find young people in Europe. They don't have any connection with the world. So the problem that we have, just the last sentence. Sorry for talking too much. The problem that we have is lack of communication between each other in Jordan and with the world around us. So that's why we are happy to be here and to discuss it with you. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I would actually like to now also involve our speakers. Hannah, would you like to directly say something towards the comments and questions?
Yes, first of all, I want to thank you all for all the comments, because I think they're a very good representation of talking about Jordan, because one very little thing can have a lot of different opinions on it. And maybe to put a different perspective about films, it's very interesting, or it's important to know that the Jordanian film scene is still very small, and it's a beginning stage, especially when it comes to feature films. And a documentary like this, and it's important to see who makes such documentaries. So this documentary was made by a Jordanian who has studied and lived outside of Jordan for 8 years. And I think it's important to include a global perspective and to see what was discussed globally in the media a lot at that time when he made that documentary, and that was 9/11 terrorism, and why, and people were interested in the question to why does this happen. And this film doesn't answer this question, of course, and it's also not, this film is not about Jordan, it's about one person living in Jordan. And what this film does do very well, it sheds light on some of the dynamics in Jordan, which are unemployment, which is very high in Jordan, poverty, which is a problem in Jordan, and also the divide. So what this film also does, it puts the focus away from Amman, which is rare in the discussions about Jordan. And let me just say one thing about several comments were about that the person changed his mind, or he doesn't represent a true opinion on whatever. And studying identities myself, I think that he is not different or let's say shaky in his opinion, but he's doing something very human and natural. He's trying to survive, and he creates his realities to make sense of the world in in his different circumstances, and when the circumstances change, he has to make sense differently of his words. So I think that the question is not, is he real, is he fake, does he lie, does he have the right opinion, but it's like, how is he trying to survive in changing circumstances? And maybe one thing also to put the broader perspective when talking about Jordan. So, and also obviously, like, this is myself being a scholar from an Arabic country and living and working and studying in a European country, this kind of an audience is different, of course, because a lot of the analytical things that people do in universities have already come up, and I don't have to explain how Jordan works to those people who are from Jordan, obviously, but maybe just to see, like, there's around 6 million, 7 million people in Jordan, out of which half approximately are of Palestinian origin, out of which we have now around 500,000 refugees from Syria. They're already before refugees from Iraq. And this country is very diverse, and there are very many different positions and opinions and realities. And this film just shows the reality of one person. And yeah, I think that's important to keep in perspective.
Dima, would you like to say something about the movie?
Yeah. Actually, I have a small thing to say. This is the first thing that these accidents took place in European countries in the West. So looking at the movie and seeing this happens in Jordan, I think it's very, very important to see how it was planned and how did it all happen. Perhaps the point of views that were stated are highlighting a niche, very niche group of people. And I think that the whole movie presented a small local city. So to be able to analyze the entire idea of what really happened, maybe we need to take a global perspective of different point of views in order to analyze what has happened. And I think it's very interesting to know because such groups have actually increased rapidly during the past few years. And it's really interesting to see that such thing had happened in Jordan. Jordan is a hub for the Middle East. I don't know if you've basically heard about the Arab Spring. We've got people coming from Egypt, Syria, Palestine, definitely. So it's really interesting to see that such things are actually happening to a very important hub in the Middle East. Thank you.
Thank you. In the movie we've seen that Abu Ammar, as a Jordanian, leaves his country because of poverty and the lack of opportunities that he faces. But at the same time, we are seeing huge numbers of refugees that have come and are still coming to Jordan to seek refuge. And Jordan is, as you have already mentioned, the Arab country with the highest number of Palestinian refugees. I think it has about 2 million registered Palestinian refugees. And now it also has to deal with waves of Syrian refugees, while resources are still limited and poverty is high among certain sectors. Hannah, could you maybe explain to us a bit more how this situation of Jordan as an immigration country came about historically and what this means for the country?
Yeah, I will try to do that. First of all, Jordan is very difficult, if not impossible, to imagine without its refugees. Jordan as a country exists since 1946. When it was granted independence by Britain, and only 2 years after that, thousands of Palestinians, which have grown now to about 3 million, have fled to Jordan. And so the Palestinians have been from the very beginning a major part in forming the country's reality and national identity. And now, to put maybe an analytical perspective, it's important to see what language we use. When I say refugee, that gives a very different idea than when I say Jordanian citizen of Palestinian origin. And those are statistically often the same people. So it's important to consider that when talking about Jordan. And of course, now recently with the Syrian refugees, the question has arisen what parallels exist to Palestinian refugees and how the situation will change, because there are certain parallels, because it's unclear when they will be able to return. The situation in the camp is comparable to how the Palestinian camps were 60 years ago, and it has led a group of Palestinian refugees who are Jordanian citizens to write an open letter, which has been published on the web in Jordan, where they say something like, yeah, welcome to Jordan, don't make yourself too comfortable and trust us, because we've been in this job for 60 years. So also, as was said before, that people make jokes about these things to make sense of them in Jordan. And yeah, I mean, it is important to see that Jordan is not actually a naturally developed country, but it was colonially carved out, like all borders basically in the Middle East, and that affects the country until today. There are voices that would say that Jordan was created basically to be able to take in refugees in the wars that happen in the Middle East, though that's a very complex dynamic in Jordan with the refugees and how they are referred to.
Thank you. Dima, during the past 2 years there has also been a great influx of Syrian refugees who also need to be put up in camps, and they need shelter, and they need to be supplied with food, and they need schools for the children. And one of these camps is Satari refugee camp. And I'm wondering whether it is difficult to establish all these new refugee camps in a country that has already economic problems and lots of immigration already. So I'm wondering, how does the Jordanian government react in this situation? Also, how do the Jordanians react to this?
Okay. To start with, before answering your question, I would like to thank you for hosting us today on behalf of the Jordan-Germany Youth Exchange Program, and a little Guten Abend for the Germans, and marhaba for our Jordanian friends. Okay, so to begin with, you've asked me about the how did it all start, what are the reactions of the people, and how did we get affected as a country and as a government as well. Well, Jordan geographically lays between 3 to 4 important countries. We're in between Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, and I don't know if you know much about our culture, but the cultures are and the traditions are a little bit or more or less the same. Like, for example, my name is Dima, and Dima is also a very famous and popular name in Palestine, in Syria as well, and in Lebanon. So when it started around 2 years ago, people had already relatives in Jordan, so we did get affected because a lot of people have moved into Jordan. And to mention and to highlight a very important thing, sadly only the people, Syrians with the, let's say, good economic status or financially well off, were able to come to Jordan. We're all we treat each other as brothers and sisters, as we say in Arabic, dam wahad. So a lot of things have happened. For us as a youth, we felt more responsible, more dedicated towards our country. As I remember the day we got to know about this years ago, my friends and I at the university were discussing this, and we were wondering what's going to happen next. I think Syrian refugees coming to Jordan had opened a lot of opportunities as well, because a lot of new businesses were opened. New businesses means work means reducing the unemployment. However, on the other hand, it became more competitive because the Syrians were willing to work in, let's say, less salaries. So for us, youth of Jordan, we felt that we need to maybe work more on ourselves to be able to, compete with them, because youth in Jordan generally are not that motivated to work or to do something. So I think a lot of things that happened. Talking about Zaatari camp, when it was first open, the capacity was expected to reach 35,000 people. And today we have around 130,000 people. So you could say the number of refugees were almost triple the number in 2 years. That's a bit scary. Yeah.
Thank you. So if I understand you right, there's not really a lot of hostility of the Jordanians towards the Syrian incomers, but rather more of a competition, as you said.
It was a competition and as well as hospitality, of course, because Syria is very close to Jordan. I remember my friends used to say when we were bored we could just go to Syria. I mean, the borders were very close. We had relatives. Many of the Syrian people had relatives in Jordan, and many of the Jordanians had relatives in Syria. So after what happened, it was more like a brother-sister kind of relationship. However, on the other hand, as a youth, I think we felt more responsible and competitive as well.
Thank you. Given that I know that we have someone here from the organization Schüler helfen Leben, who need to sit on the floor, unfortunately, and I know that they are running a project in Satari refugee camp. I was wondering whether you would be willing to just tell us a little bit about your work there.
I'll get up so you can see me. Schüler helfen Leben is a German youth organization or foundation that up until very recently was involved only in Southeastern Europe, where the initiative started a long time ago when there was war and there were refugees in that area. Not to talk so long. Since spring this year, we do projects in Satari camp with young people, especially as that is our focus, and focusing on education. Also because, among all the humanitarian problems that exist, our approach was that first of all there needs to be something to do for young people in this camp. And there needs to be a perspective. There needs to be some sort of perspective of what happens when they will be able to go home someday or leave the camp to go somewhere else or whatever. And as there are schools in this camp, there are schools, but for most kids it's for various reasons not possible to visit those schools, either because classes are completely full or because they expect to go home soon, which probably won't happen, and so on and so on. So what we do is we support youth centers, sort of, and provide at least small-scale practical education and psychosocial training and these kinds of things. We try to invest a bit in those youth centers to also create facilities for sports and leisure time. And what we also do, which I find really important, because when talking about refugees in Jordan, everybody first talks about Satari camp, but most refugees actually live in communities somewhere and have very little access to aid other than what is provided by the community they live in, because there is no central point to turn to. So what we also do is trying to support at least some of those kids in some regions of Jordan to get some sort of education while they're there. One last thing, sorry for talking so long. One last thing is that if anyone is interested, we have a little discussion event at our foundation on 22nd of October, where there will be someone from Jordan talking about the situation in Satari camp, and a representative of Amnesty International to talk about international responses, and a journalist who can also talk about the broader regional situation. You can find this on our website, which you find if you Google Schüler helfen Leben.
Okay, I would actually just like to continue with the audience discussion. I think we have the potential for a lively conversation. So I invite any comments that refer to either the film or the topic of the refugees, or anything else that you would like to mention in this context.